Hi, I'm Jason with Level Up Investing, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the 5 questions that you absolutely must ask your real estate agent. So, if you're buying a house for the first time and you've just met a real estate agent or you're talking to a couple of different ones, these are the questions you really want to know so you can determine if this is the person you want to work with. So, this video is part of the Buying a House series. And if you haven't seen it yet, I'm going to put a link here for the Buying a House 101. The first video of this series goes over the 21 steps of buying a house. And you'll see in that video there are many steps there that involve your real estate agent. It involves the negotiation, the contract writing. So there's a lot that goes into it. And this is, for most people, their biggest investment and the biggest financial move they're going to make. So having a key real estate agent, a good real estate agent is really important. So let's go into the 5 questions that you have to ask, especially at the beginning of the process. Okay, so the first question that you want to ask the agent is, what is your availability? So again, this is assuming you're getting a buyer's agent because you are the one that's looking to buy a house, and you want to know what is the agent's availability, because you want to know things like, let me write it down here. Are they full-time or part-time? And that plays an important step because some agents, there are a lot of agents out there. Some of them they're holding down a job somewhere, and then they're doing this part time. And some of them, they are available all the time because that's their only gig. So you want to know that. You want to know things about, hey, they're going to be available on weekends. Or some agents will say, I am only available on weekdays, but on weekends I have an assistant that shows houses. You want someone that's going to be available all the time, especially if you're a first-time home buyer and you need that advice and that guidance. So you want to know if they're available on weekends. You want to know if they're available at nights. And question mark of how can you get a hold of them? Is it best by phone, text? And how available are they for meetings and showings? So these are the important things you want to know when it comes to availability, and this will help determine if you want to work with this agent. You want someone, especially in the beginning, especially with your first property, you want someone that's going to be as available as much as possible for you to when you have your questions and your concerns. Now, the second question that you want to ask is there a brokerage fee for buyers? And you may not be thinking about that. A lot of people, they'll just be told there's a fee and in the beginning, and then no one talks about it, and then it shows up at the very end in your closing document. You'll see a line item there. A lot of times it just kind of gets put under the radar. But the key is that some brokerages will charge you as the buyer a certain fee. So an example might be $499 buyer's fee for when the deal is closed, and that's something that you, as the buyer, obviously would be paying the brokerage that is representing you. So you want to know if there's a brokerage fee, because keep in mind that the agents, both the seller and the buyer's brokerage and their agents, they all work on commission. And so there's the seller and there's the buyer. Now, there are some times where the commissions are paid for in a split fashion, but in general, for a single family house, for a resale, just a straightforward house, residential property, the commission really should come from the seller. So there's really no reason for your first property that you should be paying any type of commission. So no, you really should ask if there's a brokerage fee. So a lot of times we've had this experience when we've bought properties, and when we look at that agreement between us and the brokerage, the buyer's brokerage, they'll say that there's a fee there, and that's to pay for things like, administrative costs. And they may come up with a bunch of reasons none of that matters. Keep in mind, they should be paid by commission, and that should be paid by the seller. So this is really important when you're asking this question, not just getting the answer, yes or no, and also what exactly is the fee, how much is it, but it's also a really good way to kind of screen your agent, because when you ask, is there a brokerage fee? You're gonna find out that in the very beginning they might tell you yes there is, and here it is in the contract. And if you tell them I don't want to pay that, they might do one of two things. They might just say, you know what, hey, I talked to my broker and we are going to waive that fee. Or they might give you, I put question marks here because they might tell you things as to, hey, oh, you know what, we have that because of this and that reason. You can get a real good gauge of the brokerage right away if they just go ahead and waive it. They may say they're waiving because you're a first time client or whoever or whatever that reason is. But they may say waive it, or they may come up with reasons and try to sell you on it, basically on why they have a brokerage fee. That is a good indication of the type of agency, the type of brokerage you want to work with. You want no fees. They get paid by commission only. And if there is a fee, you want them to waive that fee. So keep all this in mind as you're asking these questions, especially question number 2, is there a brokerage fee? Now, question number 3 that you want to ask this agent is, how many houses have you closed on for the buyer side? So, how many houses that were closed, here are the key words, how many that were closed and buyer. So why is that important? This gives you an idea of the agent's experience. They may be a brand new agent. They may be part of a brand new brokerage. You never know. So if you work with, you may be working with a big company, a well-known, long-standing brokerage, but their agent may only have been an agent for a couple of weeks, and you never know unless you ask. So how many houses have you actually closed? So the closing, that gives you an idea of their negotiation and their follow through. So that if they say that, hey, you know what, in 2019 I closed on 8 houses, and here are some of my buyers, and here are some references. So you can get an idea of how well they negotiate for you, and how well they follow through and they get things done, because especially if you're in a competitive market and there are other buyers, how much does your agent, how much are they able to really get things done and follow through and have good relationships with the seller's agents? So how much they actually close, actually finish the deal is important. And the third thing is the buyer side. So the buyer side, that also is negotiation. So you want to get an idea of how well the agent understands the buyer side, how well they understand your types of needs as the buyer, the types of things you're looking for, and probably, I think, most important is how well they negotiate for you as the buyer. So, for example, we interviewed a few agents on a couple deals, and one of them basically told us that, yeah, I've always been a seller's agent. I'm a seller's agent, but you know what? I have experience in the whole transaction, so I'll represent you. That is, to me, not as good as someone saying, you know what? I represent the buyers most of the time, and I help my buyers get good deals and get the best value. So you want to know how many they've sold, how many they've closed, and how many of those have been specifically for the buyer side, for someone like you. So that's an important third question to ask. All right, so question number 4 in the top 5 most important questions to ask your agent in the beginning is, how many houses do your clients get to see before choosing one? So this is a loaded question because it also tells you a whole lot about your agent. We've had this situation as well. You know, we were buying a property, and after we saw 3 houses, after we saw 3 houses, the agent basically said, okay, which one do you want? Which one should we go for? Do you like A, B, or C? So that already, especially for a new home buyer, a first-time home buyer, that implies that, hey, I have to pick between 3 houses. And if you're new to the process and you're trusting your agent, you may think that that's the way it is, that you pick out of 3 choices. So if your agent says, oh, we generally look at maybe 3 or 4 properties and then we find the best one, that's not a good answer. That is definitely not a good answer. And I'm going to write down what's the right answer. And the right answer is as many as it takes. So if your agent says that, hey, we'll look at as many houses as it takes for you to be happy to find the right one, then that's a really good sign. So eventually, just to give you a side example, eventually I got my own real estate license because I didn't want to deal with any of this. I wanted to look at as many properties as I want to, spend as much time as I want to, get my own showings for my wife and I to look at the properties ourselves. And the house that we live in, we looked at a total of 20 properties in this area and around. We looked at all different parameters, numbers of rooms, square footage, garage, plus or minus garage. And we wound up looking at 20 properties, and we finally decided on this one because it had everything that we wanted. It was a great location and everything. So that just gives you an example of, if somebody tries to limit your number of choices, then that's a red flag. And the right answer to this question is as many as it takes for you and your spouse, or whoever, to be happy with your choice. Because again, this is a very big deal. It's a big investment, and you need to be comfortable with what you're choosing before you move forward. So as many as it takes is the answer to how many houses do your clients get to see before choosing one. Okay, so if you think that question number 4 was a loaded question, this one is the really loaded question. So question number 5, does your brokerage, the buyer's brokerage, have financial relationships with vendors that you often recommend, like mortgage lenders, inspectors, or title companies? So this is probably something that as a first-time home buyer you wouldn't even think to ask. But with my experience, with my wife's experience, we've learned these are very important things to know. So for example, you might be working with an agent and you might have your pre-approval letter already, and your agent, even after you have a pre-approval, sure, that helps you get in the door for the agency and to look at houses and even to put in a contract. But your agent might say, hey, you know what? Make sure you ask around for other potential lenders, which is what, I would certainly recommend too. But they might say, here's a lender, Joe Blow, mortgage lender that we work with a lot. So you should give Joe a call. So that's something you need to know is, does the brokerage have a financial relationship with Joe Blow, the mortgage lender, or a couple other names that they give you? Okay, let's say you're further down the path and you've gotten in contract and now you want to get an inspection. Well, a lot of times the brokerages for new buyers, they know that you don't know any inspectors, you don't know any title companies, you don't know any mortgage lenders. So they might recommend an inspector. Say, hey, I got a really good inspector. His name's Bill Inspector, and he has inspected many properties that my clients have worked. I've worked my clients on, and he does a really good job. And he also gives a very quick report. So time is money. So we have a very short timeline for inspections. So yeah, I recommend you call Bill. So that might be something they might tell you. The other one here, the title company, a lot of times the brokerage may in the very beginning tell you, hey, we work with Sunshine Title or something like that, right? LLC. And they might even put it in your contract without even telling you about it or asking you. They might tell you, hey, they might tell you later on, hey, this is our title company we work with, and you want to know that. So you want to know if that brokerage has a relationship with the title company. Because all of these things, the mortgage lender, the inspector, the title company, these are all things that you as the buyer, as the savvy buyer, you need to be shopping for. That is imperative that you shop for all three of these. These mortgage lenders, inspector, that's probably pretty obvious, but the title company, maybe not so much. Especially as a new home buyer, you may think that the title company that your brokerage uses, that's the choice. That's the only choice. Well, every title company has different fees. We've worked with some title companies where we found a really good one for a couple of our properties. Then we bought another one, and that brokerage that was selling to us, they had a title company that they use, and it turns out that the owner of the brokerage owns both brokerage and the title company, and we went ahead with it. And lo and behold, when we finally compared the prices at the very end, which, a lot of times it's too late to back out at the closing, we find out there that basically the title company's fees were twice as much as the title company that we normally use. So you can shop for them, you can negotiate that, you can tell your brokerage and the other side brokerage that, no, I like using this one. And depending on the deal, depending on how much they want to sell you the property, they're going to have to negotiate with you. So the point for this is that if your own brokerage has financial relationships with any of these vendors and other types of vendors, you have to have a red flag go up, because then you have to start wondering, okay, are they referring the mortgage lender to me because it's the best option for me, or because they get a financial incentive for doing that? The inspector, are they giving me the absolute best inspector based on quality of work, or what the types of things that they find? Is Bill inspector a lot more OCD about his inspection than some other people, which is what you want? You want the most OCD inspector in the world. Or is Bill inspector someone that has a financial relationship with them? You never know. You never know these things. You got to ask. You got to find out. There's certain legal ramifications that they cannot have financial relationships with certain vendors, the brokerages. But, as the buyer, it's your money, it's your house you're going to buy. You want to ask. So the inspector, you want to know, are you going to get the best report, or are you just getting a report because it's fast and quick, and that's what the brokerage likes? You want to know that. And then we talked a little bit about the title company already. Significant ramifications if there's financial relationships with the title company. So key question, does your brokerage have financial relationships with these vendors? Not the type of question you would think about as you were a first-time home buyer. But now that you've seen this video, now you know that you should ask this question. It's a loaded question, and if they get uncomfortable answering it, then you're starting to get your answer. So definitely ask this question, and don't be afraid to ask it. Remember, it's your finances, it's your investment. You're the one that's going to be paying interest on it for upwards of 30 years. You better make a good decision based on key information. So make sure you ask this question. And finally, I want to add a bonus question for you to ask your agent. This is question number 6. And this is something you can ask a little bit later down the road in the process. And that is, are you representing just me, or are you representing the seller too? So let's say you get into a relationship with this agent. And this is you and your spouse. And you're the buyer. And then you have a relationship with them as a single agent representing you as the buyer. Well, let's say you find a house that is being sold by this guy, okay? And you like that house, and you put in the contract, and everything is really good, sun shining and everything. Okay, so let's say you find that house. Well, sometimes there might be a situation where this seller is he doesn't have an agent. He might be a FSBO, for sale by owner, or he may want to switch his agents. So every once in a while, you might have a situation where you are the buyer, you have a relationship with your agent, and then depending on, I guess, which state you live in, depending on how legal it is, the agent might be able to have a seller relationship too. And what they're going to try to do is they're going to say, hey, I'm going to broker the deal. I know both sides. And the benefit of that is that I can go ahead and make the deal happen really quickly because there's only one agent to deal with. And also what happens is that their commission doubles, right? Because they're working on both sides. So depending on the state you live in, that might be legal. You might have certain rules where you can only be this agent can only be a single agent for you as the buyer, for example, and then with the seller, the brokerage can be a transactional agent. There's a lot of different rules that are behind the scenes. The point for you to know as the buyer is, are you representing just me, or are you representing me and the seller? And there's a right answer to this, and that is that, yes, I'm only representing you in this deal. You don't want them to be worried about both your interests and the interests of the seller. You want them to worry about only your interests, and your interest alone. Especially if you're buying your first house, that this is very important to ask who they're representing and make sure that this agent is not representing both sides. So that's a bonus question. And again, that's a little bit later down the road when you've actually found the property and you're going into contract. They're supposed to disclose this if they are representing the other party in one way or another. They're supposed to disclose this to you, but you need to keep a heads up on this, and you should go ahead and ask straight out as the buyer. Again, this is very important because this is your investment. You're the one that's going to be putting the money down. You're going to be for a lot of you, you're going to be putting your life savings down for the down payment, and then you're going to be paying interest for many years. So you want to make sure that this is all buttoned up right, and this is exactly how it should be, where they're only representing you in this deal. So that's very important for you to remember when you're asking your questions. All right, so those are the 5 questions plus a bonus question that you must ask your real estate agent in the beginning of the process to get the best experience and the best deal when you're buying a property, especially if you're buying your first house. So if you like this video, definitely give the video a like and then subscribe to the channel, as well as hit the notification bell so you can get these videos. I'll be doing these videos twice a week on personal finance and other types of investments other than real estate as well. It'll be investments in stocks and businesses. So I look forward to you joining on the next video.